on letting go of what you cannot control. Tonight, I write to you from the quiet sanctuary of my study, where the gentle flicker of candlelight dances across these pages. The world outside continues its relentless motion, yet here, in this moment of stillness, I find myself compelled to share with you one of life's most profound truths, a wisdom that has brought me countless nights of peaceful rest. Dear friend, how often do we find ourselves wrestling with shadows? How frequently do we exhaust our precious energy attempting to move mountains that were never meant to be moved by mortal hands? Tonight, as you prepare to surrender to sleep's gentle embrace, let us explore together the liberating art of releasing what lies beyond our grasp. Consider the sailor who has spent years battling the wind, fighting the very force that could carry him home. He strains against his oars, cursing the gusts that refuse to bend to his will, growing ever more weary with each futile stroke. Yet observe what happens when this same sailor learns to adjust his sails, to work with the wind rather than against it. Suddenly, the very force he once fought becomes his greatest ally, carrying him swiftly and smoothly toward his destination. This, my friend, is the essence of what the ancients called the dichotomy of control, the fundamental recognition that our lives contain two distinct realms, that which we can influence and that which we cannot. Like the sailor's wind, the external world operates according to its own mysterious laws, indifferent to our wishes, immune to our protests, unchanged by our anxiety. Think of this moment, right now, as you listen to these words. Can you control the thoughts of the person sleeping in the room next to you? Can you alter the speed at which the earth rotates, or convince the moon to shine more brightly through your window? Can you reach back into yesterday and rewrite a conversation that weighs heavily on your heart? Of course not. Yet how much of our mental energy do we spend attempting exactly these impossibilities? The weather outside your window tonight follows patterns set in motion long before you were born. The economy rises and falls according to forces involving millions of decisions made by people you will never meet. Your neighbor's mood tomorrow morning depends on 1,000 variables you cannot see, let alone control. Even your own body operates largely outside your conscious command. Your heart beats, your lungs draw breath, your cells regenerate, all without requiring your permission or direction. But here, dear friend, is where the light begins to dawn. For while we cannot control these external forces, we possess absolute sovereignty over something far more precious, our response to them. We are the undisputed rulers of our thoughts, the final arbiters of our judgments, the ultimate authors of our reactions. This inner realm, this sacred space of choice and perspective, belongs entirely to us. When you wake tomorrow morning to discover rain falling on the day you had planned for outdoor activities, you cannot change the weather, but you can choose to see it as an opportunity for quiet indoor pleasures. When a friend speaks harshly to you, you cannot control their words, but you can decide whether to receive them with anger or with compassion, understanding that their harshness likely springs from their own pain. This understanding brings with it a profound peace. Imagine the relief of a person who has been trying to control the ocean's tides, suddenly realizing they need only learn to swim. Picture the freedom experienced by someone who has been attempting to make the sun rise earlier, finally understanding they need only adjust their sleep schedule. This is the liberation that awaits when we release our grip on the uncontrollable. But let us be clear. This release is not passive resignation. It is not the surrender of the defeated, but the wisdom of the strategic. A general who recognizes he cannot control his enemy's movements does not abandon the battlefield. Instead, he focuses intently on positioning his own forces for maximum effectiveness. Similarly, when we let go of what we cannot control, we free our energy to excel in areas where we can make a genuine difference. You cannot control whether others appreciate your efforts, but you can control the quality and sincerity of those efforts. You cannot control whether opportunities come your way, but you can control how prepared you are when they arrive. You cannot control how long you will live, but you can control how fully you live each day you are given. Consider the tree that bends with the storm. It does not waste energy trying to stop the wind. Instead, it flexes and sways, its roots deepening with each gust. When morning comes, it stands stronger and more resilient, while the rigid tree that fought the storm lies broken. Nature herself teaches us this lesson in every season. The flowers do not strain to control the timing of spring's arrival. They simply prepare themselves to bloom when the conditions align. The river does not fight the landscape. It finds the most efficient path to the sea, sometimes flowing around obstacles, sometimes wearing them down over time, but never exhausting itself in futile resistance. Tonight, as you settle into the comfort of your bed, practice this ancient wisdom. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress. This is something you can influence by choosing comfort. Notice your breath. You can guide it to become slower and deeper. Observe your thoughts as they arise. You cannot prevent them from coming, but you can choose which ones to engage with and which to let drift away like clouds across a vast sky. If worries about tomorrow begin to surface, remind yourself gently that tomorrow has not yet arrived. You cannot control what challenges it may bring, but you can control how rested and centered you will be to meet them. If regrets about yesterday attempt to steal your peace, acknowledge them with kindness, then release them, knowing that the past is beyond your power to change, but your relationship with it remains entirely within your control. Feel your muscles relaxing as you consciously let go of the tension that comes from trying to control what cannot be controlled. Let your jaw unclench as you release the need to force outcomes. Allow your shoulders to drop as you set down the burden of managing things that manage themselves quite well without your intervention. This practice of distinguishing between what we can and cannot control becomes easier with time, like any skill honed through patient repetition. Begin small. Notice when you feel frustrated by traffic, recognizing that the other drivers, the construction, the weather, all lie outside your influence. Your only real choice is how to respond. With rage that accomplishes nothing and poisons your peace, or with acceptance that preserves your energy for what matters. The freedom that comes from this practice is extraordinary. You will find yourself sleeping more peacefully, knowing that you have done what you could with what was truly yours to control. You will experience less frustration in your daily interactions, having lowered your expectations of controlling other people's behavior. You will discover reservoirs of energy you never knew you had, energy previously wasted on futile battles with unchangeable realities. Remember, dear friend, that this wisdom is not about becoming passive or indifferent. It is about becoming strategic, focusing your precious life force where it can actually make a difference. The gardener who spends all day complaining about the soil accomplishes less than one who works with the soil as it is, amending what can be amended and adapting what cannot. Your relationships will improve when you stop trying to change others and start focusing on being the kind of person you would want to be around. Your work will become more satisfying when you concentrate on the quality of your effort rather than demanding specific outcomes. Your daily life will feel lighter when you stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours to bear. As sleep draws near, visualize yourself as a wise captain of a ship. You cannot control the winds, the waves, or the weather, but you can set your course with intention, adjust your sails with skill, and maintain your vessel with care. The destination may be uncertain, but your journey can be navigated with grace and wisdom. Let this image carry you into your dreams, you as the captain of your inner world, sovereign over your thoughts, master of your responses, guardian of your peace. The storms of life may rage around you, but your inner ship remains steady, guided by the compass of wisdom and powered by the wind of acceptance. Rest now, knowing that you need control only what is truly yours to control. Everything else, the vast, mysterious, beautiful complexity of existence, will take care of itself, as it has for countless ages before you were born, and as it will for countless ages after you return to rest. Tomorrow you will wake refreshed, not because you have solved all of life's challenges, but because you have remembered the most important truth of all. Peace comes not from controlling the world, but from understanding your place within it. Sleep well, dear friend. The universe is unfolding exactly as it should, and you are exactly where you need to be. Rest now, and remember, peace is always within.
On finding peace in a world of noise. Dear friend, tonight I write to you from a world that seems to have forgotten the value of silence. Outside my window, the city hums with its endless activity, traffic flowing like restless rivers, construction continuing under artificial suns, conversations drifting from nearby apartments like leaves caught in crosswinds. The modern world surrounds us with such constant stimulation that many have forgotten what peace truly sounds like. Yet here you are, seeking that precious silence, that inner sanctuary where the soul can finally exhale. Tonight, let us explore together how to find this peace not by escaping the world's noise, but by discovering the stillness that exists always within you, waiting patiently beneath the surface commotion. The ancient philosophers understood something we have largely forgotten. External noise is merely sound waves moving through air, but internal peace is a choice, one that remains available to us regardless of our circumstances. The Stoic masters found tranquility in the midst of Rome's bustling marketplaces, in military camps surrounded by the clash of swords, in political forums filled with heated debate. They discovered that peace is not the absence of noise, but the presence of inner harmony. Consider the eye of a hurricane, that perfectly calm center around which tremendous forces swirl. The winds may howl with devastating power just a short distance away, yet within that center, all is still. This is the peace we seek to cultivate within ourselves, not the fragile quiet that shatters at the first disturbance, but the profound stillness that remains undisturbed regardless of the storms raging around it. Right now, as you prepare for sleep, notice the sounds around you. Perhaps there's the gentle hum of electronics, the distant murmur of traffic, the settling sounds of your building, the rhythm of your own breathing. These sounds exist, but they need not disturb your peace. They are simply part of the symphony of existence, no more threatening to your tranquility than the sound of rain on a roof or wind through trees. The key to finding peace amid noise lies in changing our relationship with sound itself. Instead of fighting against the external world, demanding that it be quiet so we can rest, we learn to let sounds pass through our awareness like light passing through clear glass, present but not obstructive, noticeable but not disturbing. Imagine you are sitting by a gentle stream. The water makes constant sound as it flows over rocks and around bends, yet this sound does not agitate you. Instead, it becomes part of the peaceful atmosphere, a natural backdrop to your contemplation. This is because you have no expectation that the stream should be silent. You accept its nature and find beauty in its expression. Now, imagine approaching the sounds of your environment with this same acceptance. The distant conversation becomes like the babbling of the stream. The hum of traffic transforms into something like wind through a forest. The sounds of your building settling become as natural as the creaking of trees swaying in a breeze. When we stop demanding that the world be other than it is, we often find that what once seemed like noise becomes simply life expressing itself. This practice begins with your own inner noise, that constant stream of thoughts, worries, plans, and judgments that flow through your mind like an endless conversation. Most of us have never learned to step back from this mental chatter, to observe it without being swept away by it. We identify so completely with our thoughts that we forget there is a witness within us, a deeper self that can observe the thinking process without being overwhelmed by it.
Tonight, as you settle into rest, try this gentle experiment. Instead of trying to stop your thoughts, simply notice them. Watch them arise like bubbles in champagne, some large, some small, some lingering, others popping quickly and disappearing. You need not judge these thoughts as good or bad, important or trivial. Simply observe them with the same neutral attention you might give to clouds passing across the sky. In doing this, you begin to discover what the contemplatives of every tradition have known. You are not your thoughts. You are the spacious awareness in which thoughts arise and pass away. This awareness is always peaceful, always still, regardless of what thoughts or emotions move through it. Like the sky remains unchanged whether clouds or clear weather pass through it, your essential nature remains undisturbed by the changing contents of your experience. But what of the more challenging noises, the angry voices, the jarring interruptions, the sounds that seem specifically designed to disturb our peace? Here we must cultivate a different kind of wisdom, one that sees even difficult sounds as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to peace. Consider the ancient practice of using meditation bells or singing bowls. These instruments create sound as aids to inner quiet, not by replacing all noise with silence, but by providing a focal point that helps anchor attention in the present moment.
Any sound can serve this same function if we approach it with the right understanding. When a harsh sound arises, a car alarm, construction noise, or heated argument, instead of automatically contracting against it, try receiving it as you would a bell calling you back to awareness. Let it remind you to return to your breathing, to notice the stillness that exists even in the presence of disturbance. This transforms potentially disruptive sounds into allies in your practice of cultivating peace.
The great teachers often spoke of the difference between pain and suffering, between unavoidable difficulties and the additional distress we create through our resistance to those difficulties. Sound is similar. There's the actual acoustic event, and then there is our psychological reaction to it. The first is often beyond our control. The second is entirely within our power to influence. When we hear a sound and immediately think, "This is terrible. I can't relax with this noise. Why won't it stop?" This resistance creates far more disturbance than the original sound ever could. But when we hear the same sound and think, "This is what's present right now. I can let it be here while I rest peacefully," suddenly the sound loses its power to disturb us. This principle extends beyond sound to all the ways the world fails to match our preferences. The practice of finding peace amid noise teaches us to find peace amid any challenging circumstances. We learn that our well-being does not depend on the world arranging itself according to our wishes, but on our ability to remain centered regardless of external conditions. Think of a master musician who can play beautifully even with imperfect acoustics, or a skilled cook who can prepare a delicious meal even in a chaotic kitchen. They have developed their abilities to the point where external conditions, while they may affect the details of their work, cannot prevent them from expressing their mastery. This is the kind of inner development that allows us to rest peacefully even when our environment is less than perfectly quiet. As you lie here tonight, experiment with different ways of relating to whatever sounds surround you. If there's rhythmic noise, perhaps a clock ticking or machinery humming, try synchronizing your breathing with it, letting it become a meditation support rather than a distraction. If there are irregular sounds, practice letting them come and go without following them with your attention, the way you might let strangers pass by on a busy street without turning to watch each one. The urban hermits, those contemplatives who found profound peace while living in the heart of busy cities, often spoke of learning to hear the silence within the noise. They discovered that if you listen deeply enough, even the most chaotic soundscape contains spaces of quiet. Between the words in conversations, between the notes of music, between the sounds of traffic, there are tiny gaps of silence.
As your attention becomes more refined, these gaps seem to expand, offering momentary refuges of perfect quiet. But perhaps most importantly, they learn to recognize that the deepest silence is not acoustic, but spiritual. It's the silence of a mind at peace with what is, rather than constantly demanding what isn't. This silence can be found as easily in Times Square as in a monastery, because it depends not on external conditions, but on inner development. Consider tonight how this practice might transform your daily life. If you can find peace while surrounded by the sounds of the modern world, think how much easier it will be to maintain equilibrium during difficult conversations, stressful work situations, or challenging family dynamics. The person who can rest peacefully despite external noise is well prepared to remain centered despite external pressures of any kind. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent to your environment. There's wisdom in choosing quiet spaces when they're available, in protecting certain times and places for deeper silence, in creating sanctuaries where your spirit can fully rest. But it means that your peace is not held hostage by circumstances beyond your control.
Imagine how different your life might feel if you no longer needed perfect conditions to experience tranquility. If you could find rest on airplanes and in hotel rooms, calm during construction projects and family gatherings, peace during busy work days and chaotic travel. This is not an impossible ideal, but a practical skill that develops through patient practice. As sleep approaches, let yourself settle into this understanding. You don't need to solve the problem of noise to experience peace tonight. You need only remember that peace is your natural state, temporarily obscured by the habit of resistance, but always available when you stop fighting what is and start embracing what's actually here. Feel your breath naturally deepening as you release the need for perfect silence. Notice how your muscles soften when you stop bracing against unwanted sounds. Allow your mind to rest in this spacious awareness that can hold all sounds without being disturbed by any of them. Tomorrow, when you encounter the inevitable noises of daily life, you'll have a new resource, the memory of this peace that exists independent of external conditions. You'll know that tranquility is not something you must hunt for in the future or remember from the past, but something you can access right now, right here, regardless of what symphony of sound the world is currently performing. Let this knowing carry you gently into sleep, that most peaceful of states, where consciousness itself learns to rest in pure silence, even as the world continues its ancient dance of sound and movement all around you. Rest now, and remember, peace is always within. Letter 3. On accepting pain without bitterness. Tonight I write to you by the soft glow of lamplight, as autumn rain taps gently against the glass. There is something about the darkness and quiet of evening that makes us more honest with ourselves, more willing to acknowledge the tender places in our hearts that daylight often encourages us to hide. Dear friend, as you prepare to rest, I want to speak with you about one of life's most challenging teachings: how to experience pain without allowing it to transform into bitterness. Pain, in its many forms, is perhaps the most universal of human experiences. Physical discomfort, emotional wounds, disappointment, loss, betrayal, longing. These are not aberrations in the human condition, but integral parts of it. Yet so often we approach pain as if it were a mistake, a failure of the universe to arrange itself properly for our comfort. Tonight, let us explore a different relationship with suffering, one that allows us to experience pain fully while protecting the sweetness of our hearts. The ancient Stoics made a crucial distinction that modern life often overlooks: the difference between pain and bitterness, between hurt and resentment, between the inevitable sorrows that come with loving deeply and the optional poisons we sometimes create in response to those sorrows. Pain is often unavoidable. It is the price we pay for having hearts that can break, bodies that can be injured, hopes that can be disappointed. Bitterness, however, is always a choice, even when it feels automatic. Imagine a person walking through a garden who accidentally steps on a thorn. The sharp pain is immediate and real. This is unavoidable suffering, the natural consequence of moving through a world that contains both flowers and thorns. But then imagine this same person becoming so angry about the thorn that they begin to curse all gardens, to hate all flowers, to warn others never to walk anywhere beautiful, because beauty inevitably contains hidden dangers. This transformation of momentary pain into lasting bitterness is the optional suffering we add to life's necessary difficulties. Consider your own experiences of pain, dear friend. Think of a time when you were hurt by someone's words, disappointed by an outcome you had hoped for, or faced with the loss of something precious. In that moment of initial impact, there was pure pain, sharp, clear, undiluted by complex emotions. This is pain in its raw form, and while difficult, it contains within it a strange kind of purity.
But then notice what often happens next. The mind begins its commentary. This shouldn't have happened. I don't deserve this. They had no right. Life is unfair. Why does this always happen to me? I can't trust anyone anymore. Each of these thoughts is like adding a drop of poison to a clean wound, transforming simple pain into complex suffering, immediate hurt into lasting bitterness. The Buddha spoke of this as the difference between being struck by one arrow and being struck by two. The first arrow is the unavoidable pain of difficult circumstances, illness, aging, death, separation, disappointment. The second arrow is our resistance to the first, our stories about why it shouldn't be happening, our blame and resentment and elaborate mental constructions about what this pain means, about us, about others, about life itself. Tonight, as you reflect on this, see if you can distinguish these two arrows in your own experience. Where in your life might you be experiencing clean first arrow pain, the simple sadness of loss, the straightforward ache of longing, the honest hurt of betrayal? And where might you have added second arrow suffering, the bitter stories, the resentful narratives, the hardened places where pain has crystallized into something more persistent and poisonous? The practice of accepting pain without bitterness begins with learning to experience the first arrow fully while declining the second. This is not about becoming passive or masochistic, not about failing to protect ourselves from unnecessary harm, not about accepting abusive treatment or dangerous situations. It is about learning to experience inevitable pain without multiplying it through resistance and resentment. When physical pain arises, the ache in your back, the tension in your shoulders, the fatigue in your body, notice the difference between the actual physical sensation and your mental reaction to it. The sensation itself has certain qualities: intensity, location, duration, texture. But often we add layers of interpretation. This is terrible. It's getting worse. It's never going to get better. I can't handle this. These interpretations often cause more suffering than the original sensation.
Try this gentle experiment. The next time you notice physical discomfort, see if you can observe it with curious attention rather than automatic resistance. What does it actually feel like when you remove the story about what it means? Can you experience the sensation as simply sensation, the way you might observe an interesting natural phenomenon? This doesn't make the pain disappear, but it often reduces the secondary suffering we add to primary discomfort. The same principle applies to emotional pain. When sadness arises, it has its own natural rhythm, sometimes sharp and overwhelming, sometimes gentle and diffuse, sometimes steady and deep. This is the first arrow of emotional pain, and while it can be intense, it is also temporary and ultimately healing. Sadness that is allowed to move naturally through the heart leaves us softer, more compassionate, more aware of what truly matters. But when we resist sadness, when we tell ourselves we shouldn't be feeling this way, when we judge ourselves as weak or broken for having normal human responses to difficult situations, this is when sadness transforms into depression. Grief becomes despair. Disappointment hardens into cynicism. The person who loses a beloved friend and allows themselves to feel the full weight of grief will eventually find that this pain carries them deeper into appreciation for love itself, for the preciousness of connection, for the beauty of having had something worth missing. But the person who tells themselves they should get over it or move on or be strong may find their natural grief process interrupted, their heart beginning to close protectively against future loss. Similarly, the person who experiences betrayal and allows themselves to feel the clean pain of broken trust may eventually find their way to clearer boundaries and deeper discernment about relationships. But the person who tells themselves that trusting was stupid, that everyone always disappoints, that it's better to be alone, this person has traded temporary pain for permanent isolation, immediate hurt for lasting bitterness.
The key is learning to be present with pain as it actually is, rather than with our stories about what it means. Pain itself is often quite workable. It comes and goes. It has natural rhythms. It teaches us important things about ourselves and our world. But our resistance to pain, our demands that it be different, our elaborate narratives about why we shouldn't have to experience it, these create the kind of suffering that persists long after the original pain would have naturally resolved. This acceptance does not mean becoming a doormat or failing to learn from painful experiences. The person who touches a hot stove feels pain and naturally pulls their hand away. This is wisdom, not resistance. The person who is treated badly in a relationship feels hurt and may choose to end that relationship. This is self-care, not bitterness. The difference lies in the quality of heart we bring to these necessary responses. We can protect ourselves without hating those who might harm us. We can set boundaries without building walls. We can learn from painful experiences without carrying them as grudges. We can acknowledge that some people are not safe to trust without concluding that no one is trustworthy. We can grieve our losses without resenting the fact that we live in a world where loss is possible. Think of a tree that loses its leaves each autumn. It doesn't resist the seasonal change, doesn't hold on to each leaf with desperate determination, doesn't curse the winter for coming. It simply lets go when the time comes, trusts the natural cycle, and prepares to grow new leaves when spring returns. This is acceptance without bitterness, acknowledging what must be released while maintaining faith in what might yet emerge. The same wisdom applies to the seasons of our hearts. There are times for holding on and times for letting go, times for opening and times for protecting ourselves, times for trusting and times for careful discernment. But we can navigate all these seasons without hardening our hearts permanently against the possibility of spring. When someone hurts us, we can feel the full impact of that hurt while still remembering
that their capacity to cause pain says more about their own woundedness than about our worth. When life disappoints us, we can feel the sadness of unmet hopes while still remaining open to new possibilities. When our bodies fail us, we can acknowledge the limitations while appreciating whatever capacities remain. This is not easy work, dear friend. The transformation of pain into wisdom rather than bitterness requires tremendous courage and patience with ourselves. It asks us to feel everything without closing our hearts, to remain vulnerable even after we've been hurt, to keep choosing love even in a world that sometimes feels unloving. But consider the alternative. Bitterness promises to protect us from future pain, but it does so by numbing us to future joy as well. Resentment offers the illusion of control. If we can blame someone or something for our suffering, we feel we understand it, can prevent it from happening again. But this pseudo-control comes at the cost of our freedom, our capacity for genuine connection, our ability to receive the gifts that life continues to offer even after it has wounded us. The bitter person may feel powerful in their anger, righteous in their resentment, safe in their emotional armor. But they have traded their birthright as fully alive human beings for the cold comfort of being right about how wrong the world is. They have chosen the security of cynicism over the adventure of continued openness. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, take a gentle inventory of your heart. Where might you be carrying old pains that have hardened into bitter places? Not to judge yourself. We all do this. It's part of learning to be human. But simply to notice with compassion what has happened when pain met resistance in your own experience. Perhaps there's a relationship that ended badly, and the natural sadness of loss has become mixed with ongoing resentment. Perhaps there's a dream that didn't materialize, and the clean disappointment has been complicated by shame or blame. Perhaps there's a physical limitation that causes not only practical challenges, but also anger at your body's betrayal.
See if you can, even briefly, separate the clean pain from the added suffering. What would it feel like to miss someone without hating them? To feel sad about a loss without calling yourself a failure? To experience physical limitations without resenting your body's humanity? This separation is not always possible immediately, and it should never be forced. Sometimes bitterness has served an important protective function, and we need to honor that, even as we eventually choose to soften. But the awareness itself, the recognition that pain and bitterness are different experiences, is the beginning of freedom. As you settle into rest, imagine your heart as a garden that has weathered many storms. Some plants have been damaged, some have died. Some areas bear scars from harsh weather. This is natural. No garden remains perpetually pristine. But notice, too, that the soil itself remains fertile, that new growth continues to emerge, that the garden's essential capacity for beauty and life persists beneath whatever temporary damage has occurred. Your heart, like this garden, maintains its essential goodness regardless of what storms it has weathered. The pain you have experienced, the losses you have endured, the disappointments you have faced, none of these diminish your fundamental capacity for love, wonder, connection, and joy. They may have left marks, but they have not destroyed what is most essentially you. Let this understanding carry you into sleep, that you can acknowledge all the ways you have been hurt, without letting those hurts define you. You can honor the full reality of your pain without surrendering to permanent bitterness. You can protect yourself wisely without closing your heart completely. You can learn from difficult experiences without letting them steal your faith in the possibility of better ones. Tomorrow may bring its own challenges, its own opportunities for both pain and bitterness, or for pain and growth. But tonight you rest in the knowledge that you have a choice in how you meet whatever comes. You can experience life's inevitable difficulties without losing sight of its persistent beauty. You can be fully human, vulnerable to hurt, capable of healing, always able to begin again with an open heart. Rest now, and remember, peace is always within.
Letter 4. On the shortness of life and the value of time. Dear friend, tonight I write to you in the profound quiet that comes just before sleep, when the day's activities have ended and the mind naturally turns toward deeper contemplations. The clock beside my desk marks another day's passage, its steady rhythm a gentle reminder of time's constant flow. As you prepare to surrender these precious hours to rest, I want to share with you some thoughts about our most mysterious and valuable resource, time itself. How strange it is that we can hold gold in our hands, count money in our wallets, measure the boundaries of our property, yet we cannot grasp even a single moment or save it for future use. Time alone among all our possessions flows constantly away from us, indifferent to our desire to slow it down or speed it up, immune to our attempts to hoard it or spend it more wisely. Yet in its very elusiveness lies perhaps life's most important teaching. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote that life is not short, but we make it so by wasting it. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, let us consider what it might mean to truly value time, not by frantically trying to fill every moment with activity, but by learning to inhabit our moments more fully, to be present for the irreplaceable gift of this particular evening, this specific breath, this unique opportunity for rest and renewal. Consider how differently we experience time at different stages of life. To a child, a single day can feel endless,
packed with adventures and discoveries, new experiences that expand consciousness and create rich memories. Summer vacation stretches ahead like an eternity of possibilities. A year feels like a significant portion of existence because for a 7-year-old, it represents 1/7 of everything they've ever known. But as we age, time seems to accelerate. Years begin to feel like months used to, months like weeks, days like hours. This is not merely a trick of perception, but a natural consequence of how memory and routine interact with our sense of temporal flow. When each day closely resembles the ones before it, when we move through familiar patterns without full attention, time loses its texture and substance. Days blend together into undifferentiated streams, and we suddenly find ourselves wondering where the months have gone.
Yet this acceleration is not inevitable. Have you noticed how a single day can feel tremendously long when it's filled with new experiences? How time seems to slow down during moments of intense presence. A beautiful sunset, a deep conversation, a creative breakthrough, or even during moments of crisis when awareness becomes heightened. This suggests that our subjective experience of time's passage is intimately connected to the quality of attention we bring to our moments. This evening, as you lie here preparing for sleep, you have an opportunity to practice a different relationship with time. Instead of hurrying toward unconsciousness, rushing to get your rest so you can face tomorrow's demands, what would it feel like to savor this transition? To notice the weight of your body against the mattress, the rhythm of your breath, the gradual softening of thoughts as sleep approaches. These moments before sleep are among the most precious we have, a daily opportunity to practice the art of letting go, to experience the natural rhythms of consciousness, to appreciate the simple miracle of a body that knows how to rest. Yet how often do we rush through them, treating them as mere obstacles to overcome on our way to tomorrow's activities? The shortness of life is not really about duration, but about depth. A person who lives to 90 but spends most of those years moving through routine patterns without presence may have a shorter life in any meaningful sense than someone who lives to 40 but inhabits each day with full awareness and appreciation. Quality of attention, not quantity of years, determines the richness of existence. This doesn't mean we should abandon all routine or constantly seek novelty. Routine can be deeply nourishing when approached with mindfulness. The daily cup of morning coffee becomes a ritual of gratitude. The familiar walk to work transforms into an opportunity to notice seasonal changes. The bedtime routine becomes a sacred transition rather than a mechanical process. The key is learning to distinguish between time spent and time inhabited. We spend time when we move through activities while our attention is elsewhere. When we eat without tasting, walk without seeing, listen without hearing. We inhabit time when we bring our full presence to whatever we're doing, when we show up completely for the experience we're actually having, rather than mentally rehearsing the next one. Think
of the difference between a tourist who rushes through a museum checking items off a list and one who spends the same amount of time truly seeing just a few pieces. Both may spend 2 hours in the museum, but their experiences of time and the memories they carry away will be completely different. One has consumed time, the other has been nourished by it. The same principle applies to our daily lives. We can rush through conversations while thinking about our next appointment, or we can listen with genuine interest to what someone is telling us. We can eat while scrolling through our phones, or we can notice the flavors, textures, and aromas of our food. We can lie in bed worrying about tomorrow, or we can appreciate the comfort of clean sheets, the softness of our pillow, the luxury of rest after a day of activity. When we truly inhabit our moments, time becomes not a scarce resource to be hoarded, but a doorway to be walked through fully. Each experience, however ordinary, reveals depths that we miss when our attention is scattered. The person who can find genuine interest in washing dishes, walking the dog, or having a brief chat with a neighbor, has discovered the secret of expanding time through presence. But this raises a crucial question. If life is indeed short, how do we balance the need for presence with the need for planning, for working toward future goals, for being responsible about tomorrow's necessities? The wisdom traditions suggest that this is a false dilemma. Presence doesn't mean abandoning all future orientation. It means being fully present with whatever our current task requires, including the task of planning, when planning is what's needed. The person who is truly present while making plans approaches that activity with the same full attention they might bring to watching a sunset. The person who is present while working toward future goals does so with complete engagement in the current steps, rather than constantly wishing they were already at the destination. Consider your own relationship with time. How much of your mental energy goes to dwelling on past events you cannot change, or worrying about future scenarios that may never materialize? What would it feel like to gather more of your attention into this present moment, this current breath, this actual experience you're having right now?
This doesn't mean never learning from the past or never preparing for the future. It means recognizing that the past exists only in memory. The future exists only in imagination, and life exists only now. The past cannot be changed. The future cannot be controlled, but this moment can be fully experienced. As you lie here tonight, notice how your relationship with time affects your ability to rest. When we're constantly focused on tomorrow's demands, sleep becomes merely a necessary interruption to real life. When we're replaying today's events,
bedtime becomes a time of mental busy work rather than restoration. But when we can arrive fully in this present moment, sleep becomes a natural and welcoming transition. Feel the way your body naturally knows how to slow down as evening progresses. Notice how your thoughts begin to soften and lose their daytime urgency. Observe the way consciousness itself becomes more fluid and dreamlike as you approach sleep. This is time revealing its true nature, not as a scarce commodity to be rationed, but as the medium in which all experience unfolds. The ancient philosophers often meditated on mortality, not to become morbid, but to cultivate gratitude for the time we have. When we truly understand that our days are numbered, not in a fearful way, but as a simple fact, we naturally begin to treasure them more. The flower is more beautiful because it will fade. The sunset is more moving because night will follow. The time with loved ones is more precious because it will not last forever. But this awareness of life's brevity need not create anxiety or urgency. Instead, it can inspire a deeper appreciation for ordinary moments. The knowledge that we will not have infinite mornings can help us savor this particular morning. The understanding that our capacity for experience is limited can motivate us to be more fully present for the experiences we do have. Tonight, let this awareness settle gently into your consciousness. You do not need to solve the problem of time's passage or find a way to make your days last longer. You need only recognize that this particular day, this specific evening, this unique moment of preparing for sleep will never come again. It is irreplaceable and unrepeatable, worthy of your full presence and appreciation.
Consider how this understanding might change your experience of tomorrow. If you could approach each conversation, each meal, each task with the awareness that this exact experience will never occur again, how might you show up differently? If you could remember that each person you interact with is also navigating their brief journey through time, how might you listen more carefully, speak more kindly, connect more authentically? The shortness of life, properly understood, is not a source of anxiety, but an invitation to depth. It calls us to be more selective about how we spend our attention, more intentional about our commitments, more present to the experiences we choose to have. It reminds us that we cannot do everything, see everything, or experience everything, and that this limitation is precisely what gives meaning and poignancy to what we do choose. Consider how this understanding might change your experience of tomorrow. If you could approach each conversation, each meal, each task with the awareness that this exact experience will never occur again, how might you show up differently? If you could remember that each person you interact with is also navigating their brief journey through time. How might you listen more carefully, speak more kindly, connect more authentically? The shortness of life, properly understood, is not a source of anxiety, but an invitation to depth. It calls us to be more selective about how we spend our attention, more intentional about our commitments, more present to the experiences we choose to have. It reminds us that we cannot do everything, see everything, or experience everything, and that this limitation is precisely what gives meaning and poignancy to what we do choose. As sleep approaches, let yourself feel gratitude for the time you've been given. Not just the years you hope to have, but this particular day that is now ending. These hours of evening rest, these moments of quiet reflection. Tomorrow will bring its own gifts and challenges, its own opportunities for presence and growth. But tonight, this time is yours to inhabit fully. Feel your breathing naturally slowing as you settle deeper into rest. Notice the way time itself seems to soften at the edges of sleep, becoming less linear, more fluid. This is consciousness returning to its natural rhythm, no longer driven by clocks and schedules, but flowing with the deeper currents of rest and renewal. Let this natural rhythm carry you into sleep with the understanding that rest itself is not time wasted, but time honored. Sleep is not an absence of life, but a different kind of presence, a necessary return to the unconscious wisdom that repairs and restores us for another day of conscious experience. Tomorrow, you will wake to new opportunities for inhabiting time fully, for bringing presence to whatever experiences await you. But that is tomorrow's gift. Tonight's gift is this gradual release into sleep, this daily practice of letting go, this trust in the natural rhythms that govern all life. Rest now, knowing that you have used this day according to your best understanding, and that tomorrow will offer fresh opportunities to practice the art of living with presence. Time may be limited, but your capacity to inhabit it fully is infinite. Rest now and remember, peace is always within.